Are you enjoying Path of Exile 2? Well, it's probably my game of the year so far. It's phenomenal, and I'm not a big fan of these type of games. So I thought, why not crack out some build guides? So I'm doing a warrior build. I like to call this the Juggernaut. It's sort of like a never dying character. I have finished all of Act 1, so it is a very early build. We are level 17. So let's go over everything. We're going to start with our skill tree. Now, when it came to the warrior, the whole gist of this build is that we are going to have heavy armor, a lot of life drain, or health regeneration, I should say. We're going to be dealing some pretty decent damage, and we're going to use a totem. That is the gist of this build. So, the plan for this build, as you go along the skill tree, I will show you exactly where to go, where we're going to go in the future, and all that fun stuff. But we started here on this node with the armor, coming all the way down, and filling out this circle with our first 5 levels to get to Relentless. 15% increased armor, they regenerate 0.5 of life per second, and a plus 10 to strength. As you can see on the right hand side, 73 strength, 30 dex, 29 intelligence. Reason I'm actually using some intelligence is because I'm actually using some spells as well in this build. Now from here, for the next 2 levels, I went along to the quadrants here to get sturdy metal for an 80% increased armor from equipped body armor, which is crazy because it made me so tanky at the start of the game. Once I had hit sturdy metal, I had actually travelled back to Relentless to come to the right, or I guess should we call it the southeast? We'll call it the southeast. The reason I did that was come to here, and I could follow this first circle down here, because I really wanted to get to mass rejuvenation and really pump out this life regen. Doing all this meant that I could, for example, stand in the blood puddles inside the mansion towards the end of Act 1 and stuff, and I would lose health, but it would instantly boost me all the way back up. It was crazy to see. But that's where I would go next. I would grab Relentless, I would then travel to the east to get sturdy metal, and then come back along, travel to the southwest, and get mass rejuvenation. Now once I'd hit mass rejuvenation, I went back to sturdy metal, and I went north, taking the armor 15% increase, and then brutal, 10% increased stun build up, 16% increased melee damage, and a plus 10 to strength. Hence why my strength is so high. It's a crazy number of 73. Now after hitting this, I went back to this dexterity node I took here. This is the one that led me to the mass rejuvenation, and I went sort of southwest-ish down to intelligence, and then up to here, because the whole thing I'm now aiming for are these armor increases here: polished armor and blade catcher. Having all of these nodes in total, there are 10 or so nodes, I think. 3, 5, 10 nodes, what I guess. All of these boost your armor, which means we can stand in the pocket and we can just take hit after hit after hit and not have to worry. With Blade Catcher, we defend with 200% armor against critical hits and a plus 15 to strength, which is a wild amount. And then with Polished Armor, 25% increased armor, 50% of base armor from equipment, also added to stun threshold, which means you now also have more chance of dealing stun, which works amazingly on bosses. Now when it comes to our skills, I am using Mace Strike at level 5, you can obviously upgrade these using your gems. I'm using Rolling Slam at level 4, this is also a really great ability. This one, so Mace Strike, Rolling Slam and Shockwave Totem are the 3 biggest abilities I use in this game. I'm using things like Spark, which I have at level 4, and Flame Wall at level 4, just to add some variety, because obviously some enemies are weak to fire, lightning, and it's a nice way of just sort of, it spreads your damage output without really negating any of your other stats. It's just a nice way of having variety without nerfing yourself as you go through the skill tree. I'm also taking Bone Shatter, not really a ability I use that often. Killing Palm, again, not really an ability I use, it's just nice to be able to see how I know an enemy's close to death. Now Shockwave Totem is where it's really at. This is phenomenal. If I show you what we're using here, I'm using Jagged Ground. So supporter skills have a 50% chance to create Jagged Ground. 4 seconds of that and it's just insane. Really good way of like nerfing the enemies and make sure they can't really do much. I'm also pairing this with Overabundance. So this has a +1 to limit. Support skills have 50% less skill effect duration. but essentially we can throw up 2 and they'll be 50% less effective, but we have 2 that we can put in different areas, which means if you can sort of like have a V shape where you're in the center and then you've got 1 totem on one side, 1 on the other, you can really hit those enemies hard with the totems before they even get to you, and then 1 or 2 swings and you finish them off entirely. Now when it comes to spark, I'm using conduction, so 100% more chance to shock. Shock is always fun. And with Mace Strike, I'm using Rage. Now Rage is amazing because the more Rage you build up, the more damage you'll do with your swings. So we're growing 3 Rage on every melee hit. So if you're using this on boss, your Rage will build up and up and up and up and up, meaning you'll do more damage. As well as Fire Infusion, 25% of damage as extra fire damage, and we deal 50% less cold and lightning damage. Which is fine, because a lot of the warrior skill tree that I've seen so far is actually based around like fire damage and stuff, so having fire is amazing. Another ability that I'm starting to use now is Molten Blast, a really nice way of just throwing a fire projectile at enemies. Really cool. Converts 60% of physical damage to fire damage. While dual wielding, fires twice as many projectiles. We're not dual wielding because I am using a 2-handed weapon. And talking of items, let's go over the items I'm using. So, obviously, you're not going to have these exact same items, these exact same skills and whatnot. But my recommendation would be items that increase your physical damage, increase your strength, and increase your health regen or armor. Those are the 4 key things to look for when doing this build. Obviously, physical damage and strength equals your big DPS. Armor, because we are a very heavy armor orientated build, is going to help with that. And then health regen kind of speaks for itself. So as you can see with the maul I'm using, I have physical damage, I have extra physical damage, 55% increased elemental damage with attacks, that affects my fire damage, 8% increased attack speed, which is really nice, that was a very nice added bonus, and then plus 8 to strength. For my ring, again, you'll notice 1 to 4 to physical damage, plus 5 to dexterity, which was, nice little benefit, but more importantly, 2.6 life regen per second. Again, really doubling down on either strength, armor, or health regen. For gloves, so energy shield. If you can get some energy shield for this build, phenomenal. But if you can't, I didn't have a lot of energy shield until I would say 70% of the way through Act 1, and the build worked absolutely fine. But if you can get some energy shield, that's just even more tankiness. And what's really cool about this one, again, I've doubled down 2 to 3 fire damage to attacks. Again, combines with our build really well. For about 24% increased life recovery from flask, plus 33 to maximum life, plus 8 strength. There are way better belts I've found in terms of rarity or stats, but again, doubling down on the health and the strength, and that's what I really want to focus on. Instead of trying to spread myself too thin, double down on what's really working, and that's the health, the strength, the health regen. For boots, as you can see, 31 to maximum life, 3.2 life regeneration, everything else is just a nice added bonus. For the other ring, I haven't really found a better ring for this so far. I took the mana, the reason being is we do have spells. Using Flame Wall, using the lightning spell are really handy, so having more mana is always nice in that case. But obviously, if I could switch this out for something for armor, health, strength, I would in a second. Physical damage, it would be gone. For armor, 72 armor overall. I've got a rune on it for 20% increased armor, evasion, and energy shield. For this build, if you can put a rune on one of your bits of equipment, will take it up to the next level, I promise you. 18 to maximum life, plus 5 strength, 3.3 life regeneration per second. Now for a helmet, as you can see, once again, plus 10 to armor, 23% increased armor and energy shields, and a plus 29 maximum to life. You'll notice that every single item I have, apart from that one ring, really gives me one of those 3 things I really focused on. That'd be my biggest encouragement to you guys when trying to pick items. Don't go for something that's got loads and loads of stats, go for something that's got loads of stats that you need. And for an amulet, plus 12 to strength, plus 14 to maximum energy shield. Now with that all being said, where would I take this build in the future? Well, we'd fill out the armor here. That would be my number 1 go-to, filling out the armor, and then travelling up this path here, once you've done this, to get the attribute plus 5, and then coming down here to to the two-handed damage and filling out this almost like sailor anchor. From this point, I would probably venture from the dexterity here to here, and then start taking the totem damage, because the totem in this is really good and I use it so much. So that would be my next benefit, would be to take the totem damage. And then head to beef for the 25% strength. This will be an absolute game changer, I think, when it comes to doing this build. 25% strength, if I had that right now, would be on almost 100 strength. It will just absolutely change the game, I truly think that. So that would be where I would take the build next, would be filling out the armor, filling out the two-handed damage, and then filling out totem, working my way to beef. Now, where would I take that to Act 3? Who knows yet. Problem is, with this skill tree, it's so vast. As you work your way up, there's so many good things you can do. For example, we have more armor stuff here. We've got more two-handed damage here. If we venture over here, we've got rage decay and all that stuff. We've got attributes, armor breaking. Loads of ways you can take this, even more totem stuff if you come over here. So there's loads of places you can take this build, but if you are taking this into Act 2, those would be my recommendations. Fill out your armor section here, the nice little weird, I guess it's kind of like a battle axe on the side. Filling out the anchor of two-handed damage and then working on your totems. Alright, so obviously I've done this, but should we test this build out? Just give you a little demonstration. I know there's enemies up here. So again, throw the totems down. And then we can just stand here and wail on the enemies like that. And obviously, I have switched out a few of my weapons, or sorry, a few of my items. For a long time, I had even more life regen, which was phenomenal. But I wanted more DPS, and that's what I now have. And as you can see, 2 swings and they're dead. Don't forget, level 17 in total. You see, even though I'm losing life, if I'm at half, if I roll this way, you can see just how quick it builds out. Throw the totem down. And you'll see we are regenning so quick. Just like that. And as you can see, even though we're doing that, energy shield is building up, health is building up already. Again, throwing on a little bit extra life would be amazing, but it isn't a huge loss at this stage. Again, throw the totem down, let the totem do a lot of damage to enemies as they run to you. And as you see, we can just wail on them. And that is the gist of this build. I really hope you have liked it. Again, doubling down on all those items. If you want to put more health regen on like I did beforehand, you can just stand in the puddles and you'll take absolutely no damage. It's crazy. But you do lose some DPS for that. Again, taking it forward, armor, totems, two-handed damage, and honestly, this build will just tear through Act 1 for you. So I really hope you have enjoyed. If you have, please let me know in the comments below and let me know what you changed. Would you take any other skills? What other items would you equip? Or not items per se, because that's a really tricky situation. But what other stats would you look at increasing? If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me tremendously. I'll be doing a lot more Path of Exile 2 stuff. And hopefully, I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.